6 million people did not vanish by accident. They were erased by design. What happens when hatred becomes policy? When paperwork decides who deserves to live, and when killing is no longer a crime, but a system? The Holocaust was not chaos. It was organization. It was schedules, lists, trains, laws, and silence. And that is what makes it terrifying. This was not only a story of death, it was a story of how an entire society was slowly taught to accept the unacceptable. Step by step, neighbors became strangers. Strangers became enemies. Enemies became numbers. And numbers became disposable. How did ordinary people wake up one day inside a machine built for mass murder? How did teachers, engineers, doctors, and clerks become parts of a process that killed millions without firing a single shot? And more disturbingly, how much warning did the world ignore before it was too late? The Holocaust forces us to confront questions we are uncomfortable asking. Is evil always obvious, or does it often arrive disguised as order and obedience? How fragile are human rights when fear controls politics? And if this could happen once, under modern laws and institutions, what truly stops it from happening again? This is not just history. It is a warning written in human lives. Because genocide does not begin with gas chambers. It begins with words, with labels, with us versus them, with the idea that some lives matter less than others. 6 million Jews were systematically murdered. But the real question is not only how it happened. The real question is, would we recognize the signs before the numbers start rising again? History is marked by both triumph and tragedy. The Holocaust stands as one of humanity's darkest chapters, a systematic genocide that claimed 6 million Jewish lives. This was not random violence, but a calculated campaign fueled by hate. The Nazis targeted Jews, Roma, people with disabilities, Poles, Soviet POWs, Jehovah's Witnesses, and homosexuals. In total, as many as 11 million people were murdered. Remembering is not just a history lesson, it is a solemn duty. Forgetting risks, repeating the past. The shadow of the Holocaust compels us to never look away. The Holocaust began not with violence but with words. In post-World War I Germany, economic despair and chaos allowed Hitler and the Nazis to rise. They blamed Jews for the nation's problems, spreading hate through propaganda. Hitler became chancellor in 1933 through politics, not force. The Nazis quickly destroyed democracy and established a totalitarian state. Laws like the Nuremberg Laws stripped Jews of rights and citizenship. Jewish children were expelled from schools, families banned from public spaces. Legal and social segregation paved the way for genocide. Ordinary people became bystanders or participants in persecution. The world's silence only encouraged the Nazis. Understanding this rise is crucial to preventing history from repeating. The warning signs were there. We must never ignore them again. Once in power, the Nazis escalated their persecution of Jews. Emigration was encouraged, then forced, but most countries refused Jewish refugees. Trapped and isolated, Jewish communities faced increasing danger. Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass in 1938, marked a shift to open violence. Synagogues burned, businesses destroyed, thousands arrested. With the outbreak of World War II, millions more Jews fell under Nazi control as Germany invaded Poland and the Soviet Union. Ghettos were established, overcrowded, walled-off districts where Jews struggled to survive amid starvation and disease. Despite horrific conditions, people resisted, teaching children in secret, holding religious services, documenting their lives. These acts of spiritual resistance showed remarkable resilience. But ghettos were only a temporary measure. The Nazis were already planning something far more sinister. The machinery of genocide was being assembled. The world watched, but few intervened. The stage was set for the final solution. 6 million is not just a statistic, it's 6 million individual lives. Victims were mothers, fathers, children, artists, and dreamers from every corner of Europe. Anne Frank's diary reminds us of the hopes and fears behind the numbers. 2 out of every 3 European Jews were murdered. Entire communities vanished. In Poland, 90% of Jews were killed, erasing centuries of vibrant culture. The Nazis' hatred extended beyond Jews. Roma, Slavs, people with disabilities, and others were also targeted. Hundreds of thousands of Roma were murdered. Millions of Poles and Soviet POWs died through shootings, forced labor, and starvation. The Nazis sought to clear lands for Germans, destroying native populations. People with disabilities were among the first victims, killed in so-called euthanasia programs. Political opponents, Jehovah's Witnesses, and homosexuals faced brutal persecution. Each group suffered its own tragedy within the larger horror. Behind every number is a stolen future, a silenced voice. The Holocaust was not just a Jewish tragedy, it was a human one. Remembering the victims means honoring their individuality and humanity. In 1941, the Nazis launched the final solution, the plan to murder every Jew in Europe. At the Wannsee Conference, officials coordinated the logistics of genocide. Mobile killing squads, the Einsatzgruppen, followed the German army, executing over 1 million Jews in mass shootings. This method was deemed too slow and public, so the Nazis built extermination camps in occupied Poland. These death camps were designed for industrial-scale murder. Victims were told they were being resettled for work, then packed into cattle cars for days without food or water. Deception was key. Hope was maintained until the very end. Upon arrival, most were sent directly to gas chambers. The process was systematic, impersonal, and efficient. The machinery of death relied on bureaucracy, secrecy, and the complicity of many. The journey from discrimination to extermination was chillingly methodical. The Holocaust was not chaos. It was organized, planned, and executed with precision. This is the terrifying reality we must confront. The extermination camps were the final destination for millions. 6 main death camps, Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzec, Chelmno, and Majdanek, were built in occupied Poland. Auschwitz-Birkenau was the largest, where over 1 million people, mostly Jews, were murdered. Upon arrival, victims faced selection. A flick of a finger decided life or death. Most were sent to gas chambers disguised as showers. Within minutes, they were dead. Prisoners known as Sonderkommando were forced to dispose of bodies, a gruesome task under constant threat. Those selected for labor endured starvation, brutality, and medical experiments. Life expectancy was measured in months. Prisoners were reduced to numbers, stripped of identity and dignity. The camps operated with chilling efficiency, day and night. Survival depended on luck and resilience. These were not just camps, they were factories of death. Behind the statistics are stories of survival, loss, and courage. Elie Wiesel's memoir, Night, recounts his ordeal in Auschwitz and the loss of his family. Primo Levi's writings analyze the dehumanization and struggle for survival in the camps. Anne Frank's diary offers an intimate glimpse into life in hiding and the hopes of a young girl. Her story, like so many, ended in tragedy, but her words endure. The righteous among the nations, people like Oskar Schindler and Irina Sendler, risked everything to save others. Their courage reminds us that even in darkness, compassion and resistance were possible. Each survivor's testimony is a vital link to the past. These stories force us to see the victims as individuals, not numbers. They challenge us to remember, to empathize, and to act. The legacy of survival is a call to conscience for us all. Remembering the Holocaust is a moral imperative. We honor the victims by keeping their memory alive and standing against the ideology that destroyed them. The Holocaust warns us how a modern society can descend into barbarism. It teaches vigilance against extremism, propaganda, and the erosion of rights. The process began with prejudice and indifference, never in a vacuum. Survivor testimonies are a precious resource, soon to be entrusted to future generations. Holocaust education and museums preserve these lessons. Remembering forces us to ask, what would we have done? Will we be bystanders or upstanders? The Holocaust shows the cost of silence and indifference. We all share responsibility to speak out against injustice. These lessons are as urgent today as ever. The past echoes in our present. We must listen, learn, and act. The Holocaust is a permanent warning of the dangers of unchecked hatred. Never again is a promise that demands vigilance and action. Genocide begins with words, stereotypes, and discrimination, then escalates. We must challenge hate wherever it appears and defend the vulnerable. The world is not free from the dangers that led to the Holocaust. Extremism, disinformation, and targeting of minorities persist. The lessons of the Holocaust are more urgent than ever. Our task is to build inclusive, democratic societies that respect human rights. The Holocaust reveals both the depths of cruelty and the heights of resilience. We must carry these stories forward, honoring the past and shaping a better future. This is our duty and our promise, never again.